Welcome Lund loyalists to John Lund Unleashed. Those watching on YouTube, on the John Lund Unleashed and Bay Area Sports Collective channels. Viewers on X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and Lundos listening to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. John Lund Unleashed, brought to you by 𝐟𝐸𝐵L Sports Medicine. Got pain? Check out our revolutionary stem cell treatments. And guys, if low T is bringing you down, 𝐟𝐸𝐵 Sports Medicine can put you back in the game. Now all juiced up and ready to go, here's Johnny.
What's happening? Thanks for joining us. It is, what's today, Tuesday? Yeah, because it's trash day. The trash guys just came by. It is Tuesday. There is a lot to get to in episode 161. We appreciate you hanging out with us today. Things are, well, 49ers mandatory OTA'S, things we will and will not learn until they put on some pads here. No holdouts, no hold-ins, dumb rumors. I'll tell you about those, but that's just part of this game, which I will explain this I don't even know what I would call it, but we'll get into that. Giants odds, I got some stuff for you. I think it's a big Kyle Harrison start tonight in Colorado. Not an early, easy place to pitch. Kevin Durant potentially to the Spurs. I said the best place for him is the Knicks. The worst place for any coach is the Knicks, but Jason Kidd may be going there, the Bay Area guy. Random things happen throughout the show, as you see on the cover there at the bottom in the right hand where it looks like a NASCAR at the bottom. The B means Bay Area Sports Collective. The legs I'll tell you about in a second. There's a QR code so you can automatically subscribe to the channel. Hot questions, that's the cover. Hot questions, which I'll explain why we have to do those things nowadays. And there's the logo of John Lund Unleashed. That is the NASCAR that is below you. Thank you for joining us. A couple of quick things here. The B means Bay Area Sports Collective, which is my show. Tom Tolbert, Polymax Particles, along with Creative Tony. Now, Amy G is there, Jeremy Affelt is there, and the great Rod Brooks, so a bunch of KNBR folk and such. So make sure that you're subscribed to the Bay Area Sports Collective. That would be dandy. And have those alerts on because it's really important. It's important to have the alerts on John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, but the alerts so you know the other shows are going on. Polymac and Creative Tony at 11 o'clock Pacific time today, but then they do Wednesday nights, and Tolbert's kind of all over the board. So you just got to kind of and Rod likes to do night shows, so you just got to know what time those shows are on. So make sure you have your alerts on over at the Bay Area Sports Collective as well as John Lund Unleashed. And if you are watching on some other platform, that is dandy. Facebook, LinkedIn, X at John Lund Radio, Instagram at John Lund Radio. That is tremendous. If you would come over and say hello to us, that would be great as well. Really appreciate a like, a follow, and those alerts being on. So that would be outstanding and dandy for that. We do have a ton of stuff going on today. We always start the show by saying good morning to everybody. But before we do that very quickly, I want to say good morning to my good friend, Dr. Jeffrey 𝐟𝐸𝐵𝐿. He is the fine sponsor of the program right there. If you click on that QR code, my wife is feeling great. Couple of days when you do the stem cell in the foot, she was just a couple of days of not herself, but now she's bouncing around like crazy. So she's feeling great with the stem cell on the foot. She's done the shoulder, the elbow. I told you about that. It is, and I'm not going overboard when I say this, it is life-changing. Dr. 𝐟𝐸𝐵𝐿 was one of the first in California to do stem cells, so you're feeling great. She is feeling a lot less pain in the elbow and the shoulder. I tell you, she's not icing anymore. It's actually miraculous, and she's feeling great now in the foot that she's had an updated procedure there. So check out Dr. Jeffrey 𝐟𝐸𝐵𝐿. Please click on that QR code. Tell him I sent you over, and he will take care of you extra special. Say, hey, Lund sent me over. What do you got? So all that QR code will do is that'll take you to the website. And like I said, they do all sorts of other procedures, or you can just Google it, your favorite search engine, just Dr. Jeffrey 𝐟𝐸𝐵𝐿, 𝐟𝐸𝐵𝐿, Dr. Jeffrey 𝐟𝐸𝐵𝐿. And like I always tell you, they do the low T with me. Just had it done. Don't have to do it for about 4 more months. Quick blood test, then quick procedure, and boom, you're out the door. And then you're good to go. You're going to feel better. Your metabolism's going to be faster. You're going to have more energy. You don't want to have that low T and feeling kind of sluggish and all those things. You get older and you're going, what's going on here? Just get back to being yourself. That's all it is. And I've been doing that for years. But with Dr. 𝐟𝐸𝐵𝐿, you don't have to do it every single week. I used to have to get a shot every single week. And with Dr. 𝐟𝐸𝐵𝐿, you don't have to do that. So they do all other great procedures, men, women, all sorts of things. So either click on that QR code right there with these set of legs, or you can just look them up, Google it. Dr. Jeffrey 𝐟𝐸𝐵𝐿. It is worth your time to make the drive. If you're over in the East Bay, it's absolute no-brainer, but he is a great guy, really knows what he's doing, and you need to check it out, especially if you're looking at stem cell or low T procedures, but they do all sorts of other things. So make sure you check them out, look them up. or click on the code, and they will take care of you. Just tell them I sent you over. All right, let's say good morning to everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning to the entire crew this morning. It is great to see everybody. Dom is here this morning. Hello, hello. Christian, John, Joseph, thank you so much for making the time. Daniel is here this morning, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're like, what's going on, man? Right here in this chat room, a lot of fun people in here, so make sure that you migrate on over. Kenny Smith, our friend, a sweep in Colorado would be greatly advised because the Dodgers are right after that, and let's be honest, man, they're right on the Dodgers' heels, so why not? Dodgers did beat the Pods in extra innings last night, 8-7. Francis, good to see you, my friend. Jake, good morning, good morning, good morning. Yeah, Sly in the Family Stone, not Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, hi, Jake. No, Sylvester Stallone did not pass. Not that it's any better, Sly in the Family Stone, but Sylvester Stallone is still with us. I would recommend Tulsa. We watched Tulsa. It was very, very good. I would recommend it. Man, there's so much stuff out. You just don't know. Hurley Bird, good morning to you, my friend. Papa J, hello, hello, hello. Please like and subscribe to both channels, like Papa J always says. Who else do we have this morning? Joy, it is not a show without Joy. Anthony is here this morning. If I did not hit you up this morning, I will at some point, but make sure that you come on over to the chat room, a great chat room and a great community that we have got going here at John Lund Unleashed. All right, let's get going today on a Tuesday edition. It is June 10th. Doesn't seem like in the East Bay, but it is June 10th. I was freezing my butt off walking over here just from my house to the studio. And I have to start out with the random things off the board. I'm sorry. I'm going to get to 49ers. I promise. There's a bunch of stuff to talk about with mandatory OTAs today. But real quick. So my son, I'm waiting for a text back from him. So I dropped him off at SFO last night because I told you this. He's going to write in the Cape Cod League this year and, meet up hopefully a bunch of future major leaguers. And, he did make it. He did finally make it. Finally. Wow, look at him. That's a small plane, man. I don't know that I've ever been in a plane small enough to where the captain was sitting in my, was like, I was a crew member. Look at this. It looks like it's a car, but it's a plane. So a jumper from Boston to Cape Cod. And he's got look at that. That's his, let me see if I can get that in there. There you go. That's the pilot right there. And he's sitting behind the pilot. That'd be a little, that's called the puddle jumper. That's a small one, man. But anyway, yeah, he left last night at 10 o'clock out of SFO. And then got to Boston this morning at 6 o'clock, and then just had a bunch of weather. And that is Cape Air. That's a tiny little sucker. Dang. I am not a fan of puddle jumpers. There it is right there. Cape Air. Look at that thing. Yeah, not a fan of Cape Air. But he took it, and he made it. It looks like terrible weather there. But anyway, yeah, he's going to be writing for the summer for Cape Cod. And have a good time with it. He's never really been, he's born in, here's what's funny. We were talking about this last night when I was dropping him off the airport. He was born in Pittsburgh. And then we got the hell out of there. And we went to Detroit, which that was dandy. And then we moved back to the West Coast. We went to Dallas, and then we moved back to the West Coast from there. And so he's never really been on the East Coast, as weird as that sounds, even though he's born in Pittsburgh. It says on his birth certificate, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but he's not. He's a West Coast kid his whole life. Grew up in the East Bay, and he's, so he doesn't really even know. So it's crazy. But anyway, long night for him. He's there. Cool stuff. I was a little bit, your kid, because for the last few years, for summers, he's been home. He's been working. Last year, he covered the Giants. The Giants were cool enough to let him do that. So he did an internship with the Giants last year, covered the Giants. And now he's going back east. And I was kind of like, oh, man, usually I get summers with the kid, right? That's what happens when they become adults. But anyway, he made it to Cape Cod, and he is going to be writing all summer long, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And then in the fall, he's coming back, and ASU football, Arizona State football is red hot, and he's going to be writing for ASU football in the fall. So anyway, just had to do a proud papa moment. All right, let's move on. Speaking of football, 49ers mandatory OTA. So I put on the cover there, hot questions. I'm going to share something with you because, it's kind of ebbed and flowed this whole offseason. The first part of it was all the free agents left and everybody freaked out. And I was telling you, you don't have to freak out over Deebo Samuel and over Talanoa Hufanga and over, a number of those guys and over Hargrave. Those are, either ineffective, injured, overpaid, combination, all of them, some of them, whatever. So that's what that was. Dre Greenlaw, we had this conversation a million times. That's a little bit different. But in terms of, and then they sign George Kittle, they sign Fred Warner, they sign Brock Purdy. Everybody's excited again, right? The draft, semi-excited because it's going to take a minute. But this is kind of like rubber hits the road kind of a stuff. And I talk about this in terms of betting and Vegas and all this kind of stuff. But when you look at Pro Football Focus, which is not perfect, all right, but I like doing this. So let me just look at offense first, all right? Here's the 49ers offense. McCaffrey's going to be fine. That 71.3 number is inaccurate. I think Purdy's going to be better than 82.4, which, by the way, 10th of all quarterbacks. He's not a top 10 quarterback. Kittle's the best tight end in the league. Jennings, Aiyuk's not going to be there for a while. I get scared about Pearsall a little bit. I'm not as worried about the offense. There's Luke Farrell, who they gave a bunch of money to. His number is kind of skewed. He's not a pass catcher. He's 49 of 74 tight ends, according to Pro Football Focus, but he's just going to block. Trent Williams is Trent. Ben Botch doesn't have enough. I mean, that 74.8 doesn't really tell us anything because he didn't play much. Brendel, I know that Chris Forster, the offensive line coach of the 49ers, continues to sing his praises, but if you just watch the game, the numbers here lie to me. He's the 17th best center, according to Pro Football Focus, and a 65 is not a good grade. Think of your grades, and if you got a 65 and you brought it home to your parents, they'd be like, what are you doing? Smoking dope? So Brendel's not good, but not only is the number not good, he's pushed back into Brock Purdy so much that it affects Purdy a lot. And Brendel's not bad in the run game. He just gets pushed way too much in the pass game. He's just not strong enough in the middle. Pooney's got a great number. McKivitz is better than you think. So that's kind of what it looks like. They're going to score points, all right? They're going to score points. And a lot's going to be on the receivers. A lot's going to be on, Aiyuk is sitting there as the 33rd receiver, and he's better than that. But the thing is that injury-wise, what are they going to do there? Pearsall, Robinson, are they going to sign somebody? So that's one where I would look at Aiyuk's position on the left there as a receiver, and I'd question it. They're going to score points. Here's where I get nervous as we talk about OTAs starting up today. And there's two really good players on this defense. Bosa at a 91 grade, Warner at an 89 grade, and everybody else, it's like, what in the hell? So obviously, they've got as a starter out there, Mikael Williams. He hasn't played. Jordan Elliott was atrocious last year. It's 47.6. Again, you're flunking out of college with that number. Collins is a rookie. Bosa, we know. Okay, let's go to the next level. Special teamer in Gifford. Warner is Warner. Winters didn't show up last year. A 66.4 is completely unacceptable, which is why the hope is Nick Martin. My point in bringing all this up, and then you go to the secondary, which is scaring me. Bernardo Green was their best corner by a little bit over Lenore, who didn't have a great year, at least statistically. Mustafa's hurt. Brown scares me, and he's coming off an injury as well. So defensively, if we're going to look at OTAs today, and this is the reason I brought this up, is everybody's excited, but let's actually look at what's going on here. There's a lot of guys that need to step up from a rookie standpoint. Defensively, Green's got to be better. Lenore's got to be better. Safeties are a mess. Linebackers and Winters and Gifford, so that means Martin's got to step up big. I really don't want Elliott to start, but he probably will, and CJ West, I think, is going to push him. But there's a lot of work to be done defensively, I guess, is my overall point in putting this up. And Pro Football Focus is not perfect. I'm not saying that they are. All I'm saying is that generally speaking, they're in the ballpark as far as numbers. McCaffrey's number was 71.4. He hardly played, right? So they're generally in the ballpark. I mean, Trent Williams is always one of the ones that's top. It's hard doing what they do because they're trying to assume, the way Pro Football Focus works is they're trying to assume they know what that player was supposed to do in that play, and then they grade them harshly if they didn't do that. But sometimes that's not exactly the case. But bringing that up, what I'm saying is that, first of all, what we'll learn and what we won't. So we just looked at the depth chart. Okay, so what do we learn at OTAs? Well, they're running around in shorts. They're running around in shells. They might have pads on certain days, not bottom, just top. And so what can we learn about OTAs? Well, here's the first thing that we're going to learn about OTAs. So let me go down to no holdouts, no hold-ins. I don't know if you've looked at ESPN or any other kind of sports news this morning. Trey Hendrickson is holding out. TJ Watt is holding out. Terry McLaurin is holding out. Like blah, 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 blah. All these guys are holding out. And what this does is that, as we saw last year, it kind of rips at the fabric of your team a little bit. Just a tiny bit. But as the 49ers found out last year, if you pull on that string a little bit, everything can come undone very, very quickly. So Aiyuk was holding in. That whole thing was weird. At the last minute, Trent Williams was holding out, and Trent Williams wasn't anywhere near any of these OTAs, whether they were mandatory or not. And this year, everyone realizes, and I know this from talking to people, and just the general feeling down there is this. is that last year was an embarrassment to a lot of players, number one, and the organization as a whole. And number two, they realize that they're running out of time. And those guys that I just showed you on the board right there, Trent Williams is running out of time. Fred Warner, I'm not saying he's running out of time, but to be the elite player that he has a couple of more years of that. George Kittle, to be the elite player, the top 10 top tight end in the league, holding off Brock Bowers. Maybe he's got 2 or 3 more years of doing that kind of thing because it happens fast. Travis Kelce isn't the tight end he was. It does. A lot of times it's not gradual. It just goes like this. And so what they're seeing is, at least for this group, can they rebuild? I mean, Brock Purdy's young enough. They got some guys, Demo Lenore, stuff like that. But these elite players that they have, Christian McCaffrey's in there. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Trent Williams, these kind of guys. Bosa's got another group. Bosa can make it to the next group. So can Purdy. There's a number of guys who can do that. If Aiyuk can get back on track, he can too. There's a number of guys who this isn't their last hurrah. But they have done such a good job, obviously, in bringing in the talent. Like if you just said, an NFL team, top 10 players, right? Let's look at just the top 10 players on a roster. The Niners would be in there at the top of the league. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to win the Super Bowl, but if you just said, here are the top 10 players on the 49ers, and then you comp that to the top 10 players on any other roster in the league, they'd be right up there. Now, quarterback obviously counts for a lot, so it's not like the right guard and the quarterback are the same as far as value is concerned, but if you just looked at the top of the 49ers roster, they're very top heavy. That's why this draft is really important. 24 draft guys got to step up. 25 draft, obviously a bunch of guys have got to jump in there. And let me do this because I didn't show that when I showed this PFF thing. I just looked at the depth chart. Let me do this too. This is the draft. So again, I'm just trying to go. Oh, this is not right. Sorry about that. I did the wrong thing there. Let me see if I can try that one more time. Let me try this one more time. Because I presented the wrong thing. I was trying to be so fast. Let me see if I can do this. Because I did have the draft up, but if not, that's fine. Let's see. That was it. I thought I had it. Oh, there it is. Okay. So there's your draft. So same kind of a thing here. So Mykel Williams is going to start. Alfred Collins should start. Nick Martin, I think, is going to start. Upton Stout, I'm not sure. I think they're going to pick up. It says safety there. He's a nickel. He's going to play on the inside. Diamond Lenore is going to go to the outside. I don't know. I doubt he starts. CJ West is going to be a major part of the rotation. Jordan Watkins, I'm going to get into the OTAs here. Watkins, again, will shine in OTAs, and I'll tell you why. Jordan James, we haven't heard a lot of, but I think that he's really, really good. The backs that come out of Oregon know how to play in an NFL style. Think of like Bucky Irving is coming in the league. They've had a number of different guys come into the league and play well. This Marcus Siegel is an interesting one because they've got so many injuries at safety. And he runs a 4.37 and all these kind of things. But is it realistic to think that that guy is going to come in as a 5th-round pick, 160, and come in and look, 5th round is their magic point, right? 5th-round guys like Dre Greenlaw and George Kittle and et cetera. So maybe he's going to add to that. Rourke, Colby is an interesting guy from Iowa. Bergen's a return guy. So a lot of those guys, Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, Nick Martin, I'm not going to count on Stout, CJ West, even Jordan Watkins. I think Jordan James is going to make, there's a handful of guys right there that can make a huge difference. So between showing you the depth chart and the guys that need to step up as far as rookies are concerned, and then you throw in the 2024 guys, that's kind of where we're at as far as the Niners. So mandatory OTAs, what we'll learn and what we won't in pads. No holdouts, no hold-ins. So no holdouts, no hold-ins just means the rest of the league is dealing with that. The 49ers kind of learned their lesson. It's Camp Kumbaya. Everybody's feeling good. They realize the sense of urgency that's going around this team, and everybody, especially the veteran guys who wouldn't even normally show up at some of these things and just tell, Kyle, like Nick Bosa's like, I'm in Florida, I'm good. Trent Williams has a gym in Oklahoma, I'm good. Christian McCaffrey's like, dude, you think I'm going to fall out of shape? I'm good. But all these guys are here. They've been through all these camps. They've come. They're healthy. They say all the right things. And that's a big part of the offseason. But as far as what we'll learn with OTAs, you're not putting real pads on. You're not hitting anybody. So when we hear, for example, Jordan Watkins looks good, well, he should. He's running a 4.37. It's an OTA. It's not a physical camp. He should look good and that kind of a thing. The athleticism should shine through with some of these guys. So you're going to get a bunch of reports today, just letting you know. You're just going to get a bunch of reports today that say, this guy looks good, this guy looks good, this guy looks good. It's not quite time for one of my most annoying things about our business, which is Brock Purdy in OTAs went 13 for 17 with 2 touchdowns and an interception. Like, come on, man. We'll see that in camp. It's extremely annoying because you don't know what's going on. You don't know the situation. You don't know if the defense has seen that play 3 times in a row. What are they working on? Like, I tell you this in spring training all the time. It's like pitchers. The first week, they're just throwing fastballs. Oh, my God. What was it, 2 years ago where Logan Webb just got absolutely hammered in spring training? It's like, what's he working on? Is he working on a new changeup, a new grip, That's what's happening in these OTAs. They're not ready for the season yet. Therefore, they're, either installing things or working on things or working rookies in or seeing who can do what, or so really stats or anything like that. And I think it's too early for that. Maybe somebody will throw some out, but I think it's way too early for that. But you'll see that kind of things because what we do, and this will work into something that I'm going to talk about a little later, is that it's just constantly about clicks now. The media has changed so much that if you try to get intricate or deep or anything like that, that's not simple enough for clicks. And so people don't do as much of that. And stats are easy to follow, especially from the quarterback. So then you'll see those kind of things. Or Jordan Watkins had 7 catches or, whatever the case may be. But as far as staying on it is what we'll learn and what we won't as far as these OTAs, athletes will shine. So we won't learn a lot in terms of like Mikael Williams, for example. There'll be videos of him and he wears 98. There'll be a bunch of 98 videos today of him, doing drills, getting off the line, and everybody will be really excited. Oh, he looked really good today. Yeah, he's not even in pads yet. Like when Trent Williams can get a hold of Mikael Williams, then let's talk. Let's see what he does with a Trent Williams. Because I've told you the story before. First day of training camp, 2011. I go down there and it's Camp Harbaugh, and I'm watching Joe Staley in pads take on Aldon Smith, and Aldon Smith is giving him the business. And Joe Staley's an all-pro left tackle, and Aldon Smith is giving him the business. And I can't remember who I turned to, and I'm like, seriously? Because remember, Aldon Smith was the 7th overall pick, young guy, 20 years old. I comp him a little bit to Mikael Williams. Mikael Williams is a freaky-looking athlete, long, big, that kind of thing. Will he beat Aldon Smith? I'm just saying on the field, Aldon, the first couple of years, was just an absolute monster before all the problems. I'm not talking about anything off the field. I'm just saying everything on the field. And right from that moment, pads on. I don't remember anything in OTAs or anything like that about, Aldon Smith. Once they put on the pads and Aldon gave Joe Staley the business, I remember his length. And we talked to Joe afterwards. They had a tent set up for, training camp. And I remember Joe going into the tent. And I remember sitting near the front there, and without him being asked, because he knew it was going to be the first thing, Joe just goes, Aldon Smith. It's something along these lines, okay? I'm not saying it verbatim, but he said basically, Aldon Smith is going to be a bitch. That dude is good. It was like, duh, we could see it. He had these long arms like vines, and Joe was just like, what in the hell is this? The guy coming around the corner. And so it's all good. And because of the way the media is nowadays, everybody's got to write or say or make sure that they get clicks and all these kind of things. So everybody's going to say certain things. As far as the offensive and defensive lines in OTAs, we'll learn nothing. We'll learn nothing whatsoever. In terms of, say, a Nick Martin, for example, he's going to look great. Nick Martin runs a 4.4. He's 5'11", 220. That's great in OTAs when nobody has any pads on and nobody can hit and there's not all that warfare going on. We'll find out something about Nick Martin and whether he can, and I showed you that number. I don't want to do this again because it's really depressing, but I'm going to do it just one more time just to explain something here. No. You think they need help at linebacker? 89.2. We saw Winters overplay. Hopefully he's better this year. He was just very excited to be in. 66.4, that's a bad grade. Think about your grades. And then Gifford's a special teams guy they got from the Titans at 60.2. All right, so that's your linebacker. So a guy like Nick Martin, you're thinking to yourself, okay, it would be really nice if Nick Martin could play. But we're not going to learn anything really in OTAs. Will people write nice things about him? Yeah. He runs a 4.4 at 5'11", 220. He's fast. He's athletic. He's going to get to the ball. When they put pads on in training camp, I'll go down there and I'll tell you, and I'll show, and everybody will talk about it, and that will be one of the main things on my list once training camp starts. Can Nick Martin at 5'11", 220, and believe me, he's not big, can he get through all of the trash to get to a ball carrier? Because he's super fast, and he's going to look great in OTAs, and people are going to say nice things about him. But then when one of the guards, when Dominic Pooney in training camp fires out to get him. What's Pooney? 6'5", 315. Is Nick Martin going to be able to, what's he going to be able to do? Well, why they drafted those two big defensive tackles in there in West and Collins was to keep guards, Dominic Pooney in training camp, off the linebacker, Nick Martin, so he can quickly get to the football. We can't learn that in OTAs. We won't learn that in OTAs. We'll only learn that once everything starts. And Dominic Pooney's a damn good guard. So if he can get out to Nick Martin, game over. Nick Martin's not making any plays. But he was so good in OTAs. So OTAs are great. Don't get me wrong. Brock Purdy, will we learn anything? No. They'll get on the same page with some receivers. Jordan Watkins, yeah, okay. The athletes, like I said, are going to be what we're going to hear from. This guy was great. This guy made catches. That's why, like, the last OTAs that they had, who did people talk about? They talked about Nick Martin. They talked about Jordan Watkins. Watkins runs a 4.37. I really like him, and I loved the draft pick. I'm simply saying that we'll learn something, but it's going to be overhyped because of the way that the media is nowadays, and we won't really learn what we need to learn until camp. All right? So 49ers mandatory OTAs. Won't learn until pads. No holdouts, no hold-ins. I can't tell you how big that is for the 49ers. Let's go down to dumb rumors. So this kind of ties into what I just said here, okay? It's off season. I know it's OTAs. It's exciting. We get to, as a media, go down and talk to players and coaches and everything else, and that creates content, legitimate content. But then I wake up this morning, and I did a short on this yesterday. As far as Jair Alexander is concerned, right? Jair Alexander over the last 4 years for the Packers has played in half the games. The 49ers released Javon Hargrave because he was ineffective, but he was injured a lot. They didn't go after Talon Hufanga because he was injured a lot. They traded Deebo Samuel. Part of it was ineffectiveness, but part of it was he's banged up a lot. He plays hard, I think, and they think that his best football is behind him. He's older than his age. The odometer on his vehicle has more than you would think. You think to yourself, geez, I'm buying a 2-year-old car, but that 2-year-old car was ridden pretty hard. Maybe it's got 80,000 or 100,000 miles on it. Well, geez, the fact that it's 2 years old doesn't matter. Debo's not old by NFL standards, but he has a lot of mileage on the tires, and the way he plays, he's going to be prone to injuries, and I think his best football is behind him. So what the 49ers did this offseason, everybody had it wrong. A lot of people had it wrong. They weren't just getting rid of players because they didn't want to pay players. They weren't going cheap. They weren't rebuilding, as some dumbasses said in the local media. They weren't doing any of those things. They were looking at the situations and saying, is Deebo worth it? Is Hufanga worth it? Is Hargrave worth it? And the answer on all three of those guys was no. And a lot of it was injury driven. So let me get this straight. And again, this goes back to the way media is right now. Lots of these aggregators of 49ers content, should they get Jair Alexander? How would Jair Alexander fit? Jair Alexander. All day yesterday was Jair Alexander, right? And the odds makers, which I tell you this all the time, this is just a clickbait at the highest level so that gambling is always on your mind. Gambling is constantly on your mind, right? Gambling. They put these things out, and then nobody ever checks up. Like Jair Alexander, the biggest odds were that the 49ers are going to pick him up. Has anybody ever checked how those odds work out at the end? Because they're not very accurate, I can tell you that. And I know people in the gambling industry throw this out so that people will just click on it and talk about it. So anytime, because we're so simple, anytime that these odds come out, they get talked about. They get aggregated by people of certain teams. Oh, my God, whether it's the Chargers or the Jets or the Giants or the Titans or whatever. We're the top team to get a certain guy. Now, sometimes it's really obvious. There's a connection there, a former coach, Robert Saleh with Jets and everything like that, and it makes sense. But let me go back to all these injuries and why the 49ers did what they did. You realize right now that the 49ers have about $40 million in cap space. They like to do this because maybe they can pick up a guy or maybe there's going to be an injury during the season, but they like to have something to play with. And yet they signed Fred Warner. They signed George Kittle. They signed Brock Purdy. Remember, it was like they were not going to have any money left, and how are they going to do this? Well, they did it, and they have $40 million of cap space. What? That blows my mind. But that's what's happening. So they can do things. They can maneuver. They can move around. They can do all these things. The cap sheet is fluid. That's just how it is. So all those things combined, everybody looked at Jair Alexander. Is there a need in the secondary? I just showed you on the PFF. Yeah, there's a need in the secondary. There's no question. Upton Stout, to me, being in the slot with Demo Lenore, who's actually better in the slot than he is on the outside, and Renardo Green, who's a second-year player out of Florida State, being flanked at the safeties by a guy coming off a knee injury and Jair Brown coming off a foot injury, and he had surgery too. So 2 guys at safety who are young and had surgeries. That's not great. And a healthy Jair Alexander would be tremendous. A healthy Jair Alexander. He hasn't been. So the 49ers just got done cleaning house and getting rid of guys just like Jair Alexander. Big name, overpaid, injured a lot. Do you think they're going to jump back in that pool and do that again? It makes no sense whatsoever. So I don't, the odds makers just throw that out there. Now, if the odds makers had to be culpable for this, like they are for a game, so they set a line, right? They set a line. The 49ers are 2.5-point favorites against the Seahawks on Sunday at home. They're going to look at that and go, okay, because we can win and lose money. We can lose our ass or win a bunch of money on that. Vegas cares about that. These dumb odds that there's no betting on it. Okay, Jair Alexander is plus 400 to go to the 49ers. There's no bet. They're just throwing that out. So you click on it, and then I, of course, am falling into the trap of talking about it. But there's no culpability to that. They don't win or lose money because of it. They just throw it out there as kind of a teaser to you so that you're constantly thinking betting. They love it. Everyone clicks on it. Everyone talks about it. Oh, do you see my favorite team is the betting on? Is the betting favorite to get, player X? And it never comes to fruition. It's kind of like when people just throw out crazy stuff on ESPN, like these are my top 5 fantasy moves that this team should make, or whatever the case may be. I got something on the Giants that I'll throw you a little bit later that ESPN threw out. So anyway, it's complete clickbait at the highest level, and yet we all fall for it. We all talk about it. But then you start thinking of the logic of it, and you think to yourself, they just got rid of exactly what this guy is. He's a great name. At one point, he was a really great player. Over the last 4 years, he's missed half the games. And he's not going to take a discount. He's Jair Alexander. He's not going to take a discount. He's not going to take a make good. He's not, he may have to at some point, but not right out of the gate. They need secondary help, the 49ers, specifically at safety. But it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to bring him in because I don't know what Renardo Green's going to be in his second year. I hope he's going to be really good. I hope he takes a step forward, but it's not guaranteed. I don't know what Upton Stout's going to be in the slot. I don't know what Trey Brown, who's often hurt in Seattle, is going to be. I don't. They could use a healthy Jair Alexander. Healthy being the key word. And the very reason that the Packers released him is he wasn't healthy. So it doesn't make sense for the 49ers to sign him having let a bunch of big name injured guys go. So anyway, there's that side of it. And then the McLaurin part as we go into the middle of the chalkboard there. So it says Alexander/McLaurin. So same kind of a thing. So yesterday's story was Alexander. Today's story is McLaurin. I told you, it is wonderful and Camp Kumbaya that Aiyuk is not holding in and Trent Williams is not holding out, that it's TJ Watt not showing up and it's Trey Hendrickson not showing up and it's Terry McLaurin not showing up. What does Terry McLaurin want? A new contract. Remember, he signed a contract. When you go back to when McLaurin signed a contract, Debo signed a contract, DK Metcalf signed a contract, these were previous to what the contracts they now have. And so McLaurin hasn't signed a new contract since then. So he's holding out because he wants a new contract. That's what comes with success, right? You have success, all of a sudden the disease of me. And so Terry McLaurin is saying, hey, man, we're successful. And the reason we're successful is me. And Jaden Daniels is not going to be the same quarterback without me. And he's not wrong. And so without any kind of logic whatsoever, the rumors start. Terry McLaurin for Brandon Aiyuk. Does anyone see the problem there? Number one, from a 49ers perspective, they're still going to eat a bunch of money for Brandon Aiyuk. If they trade him right now, they'll still eat a bunch of money. And they already lead the NFL in cutting up, putting some salt and pepper on it, and eating a bunch of money. They're number one in the league for players not playing for them this year. Hargrave, et cetera, on down the line. They're eating it right now. That's what they're doing. They're like, okay, we're just going to eat it this year. Okay, the second part of the equation is, what does Terry McLaurin need? Why is he unhappy? He needs a new contract. Do you think that the 49ers, after having gone through what they went through with Brandon Aiyuk, are going to go through that same thing with Terry McLaurin? Hey, let me trade Brandon Aiyuk. We did the contract last year. Let me trade Brandon Aiyuk. eat a bunch of money for the contract that we did, that, yes, we don't like, but we did it. And so let's eat a bunch of money on that. And then let's get another disgruntled wide receiver in here and and give him a new contract. Huh? This is the same thing with Alexander. They just undid a bunch of that stuff. Big name, injured guy, not signing him. They just went through a year ago what they would have to go through again with Terry McLaurin. And yet people are like, should they trade for him? Niners should trade for McLaurin. It's like, what are we doing? Are we in third grade? But people will click on it, and that's the type of media that we've become. And I'm not angry, and I'm not mad. It's just that I love doing this and talking to you every single day, and I enjoy it. But what it's devolved into is that we used to have conversations, and every once in a while you'd be like, okay, this is very sports radio-ish, and we'd throw some silly stuff out there, whatever. But then, we'd say, well, it's going to be really difficult to do. But in this situation, to have the 49ers trade for Terry McLaurin and redo a contract and at the same time send Brandon Aiyuk. And again, there's some sense that, hey, Brandon Aiyuk played with Jaden Daniels at ASU. Like, I get it. I get people putting 2 and 2 together because we always talk about who's got a connection. And I get it that Adam Peters is with Washington. I get it. But from a logical standpoint, the 49ers would rather hit themselves with a hammer like 49 times in the head than they would go through another wide receiver negotiation. Because what did they learn from it? They learned that you don't have to overpay for receivers. And I don't think this current regime will ever overpay for a wide receiver ever, ever, ever again. Unless they get like a Justin Jefferson type or they draft somebody like that. Maybe Pearsall turns into that. I doubt it. But maybe it's something like that where it's just obvious, like you're top of the market. A Nick Bosa edge rusher, right? Where the player is so good that you're like, I guess we got to do this. But I think philosophically, one of the things that they're learning, and every front office evolves. I don't care what sport it is. One thing that I think the 49ers learned from this whole Brandon Aiyuk thing, and I don't know why the NFL did this. I think everybody was drunk. I really do. I think everybody went out on a bender and drank and then gave out wide receiver contracts. They come into the league every single year. They're not quarterbacks. There's wide receivers constantly in the league. You get them in the second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round. You get them all over the place. They're not quarterbacks. They're a dime a dozen. Why would I pay him $30 million? That's why last season on the market, when they were actually, and I know this, they were trying to move Aiyuk and we're getting near the draft. Teams were thinking to themselves, okay, I got a disgruntled guy who makes on average $30 million a year, and I could just go out and draft one of these guys, and it can be, even if it's the first rounder, that $30 million is going to go over like 4 or 5 years. I don't have to deal with this problem for like 4 years. Like Malik Neighbors right now or Marvin Harrison Jr. or something like that, they make like 25% of what Brandon Aiyuk makes. Brian Thomas Jr., the Jags, I mean, they don't make it. I mean, they make, no, don't get me wrong. I mean, between you and I, they make a lot. But in terms of just wide receiver, big chunk change, the guys who are making the big money right now, the rookie guys aren't making anything. And they can't squawk, they can't bitch, they can't moan, they can't buy out ARB years. There's none of that. You got to go. You got to play your 4 years, and then you can start complaining, and yet you can get a new contract before your 5th year, and everything because there's a 5th-year option for first-round picks. So if you were taken in the first round, I don't have to hear from you for 4 years. 4. Nothing. And you're not making that much money by wide receiver standards, by top wide receiver standards. I don't have to do anything. So why am I trading for Brandon Aiyuk again? No one wanted to do that. Anyway, it's fine. I get it. People need clicks. People want clicks. It's a big yell. Should they trade for him? Huh? They're going to go through another wide receiver negotiation. If they learned anything, and I think we talk about this all the time, life things. It's not about, and I tell my kid this all the time, it's not about making mistakes. If you're going to be aggressive in life, which you should be, and you're going to go for it, you're going to make mistakes at times. It's making the same mistake over and over and over and over and over. And I've probably said that to my kid 100 times when he screws up. Like, hey, man, you made a mistake. I don't care about that. Well, I kind of do, but I don't necessarily. But it's the same mistake over and over, which drives me crazy. When he makes the same mistake over and over, I'm like, haven't we just talked about this? So the Niners just negotiated a contract that they really didn't want to negotiate for a wide receiver, which are a dime a dozen in the league. So you're actually leveraging against yourself, and you think that they want to do that again with Terry McLaurin and eat the money from Brandon Aiyuk because Jaden Daniels and Aiyuk played together at Arizona State, and Adam Peters is the GM of the Commanders. Okay. So that's Alexander McLaurin on the chalkboard there. So there you go. Episode 161. Thanks for joining us. We are 40 minutes into the show. We've just done a little 49ers. I'm going to hit the board here in a second. If you want to talk some Niners, I'm going to switch to Giants in a second. But mandatory OTA is going on right now. What we will and what we won't learn with pads, we'll learn about athletes and speed and all those kind of things, and that'll be great. And then Brock Purdy's completion percentage will be scrutinized, and an interception will be over-discussed. We'll have a lot to talk about health and Christian McCaffrey and all those kind of things. But we will not learn anything about Nick Martin, defensive line, offensive line, any of those kind of things. And that, to me, is the biggest thing with the 49ers, because you got two big defensive linemen you need to learn about. Won't. You have a Nick Martin who's super fast, but until we get pads on, we don't know. Secondary, we don't know. And left guard, we don't know, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's cool, and it's great, and I like it, and it's fun, and you get to talk to players. But will we really learn anything? Not so much. So anyway, mandatory OTAs, won't learn until pads. No holdouts, hold-ins. I think that is absolutely huge, as we're seeing around the league. TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson and Terry McLaurin and all these guys holding out for money, which I'm not blaming them. I'm simply saying that it rips at the fabric of a team, and we saw what it did to the 49ers, and they don't have any of those this year. Dumb rumors, Alexander McLaurin. That's where we are on the board today, and I'll get to Giants and other stuff in just a second. Giants odds, big Harrison start. Then we'll hit some NBA with Durant to the Spurs, kid to the Knicks, possibly, and random things happen throughout the show. Let's see, what else do we got? We got anything else as far as anyone wanting to discuss anything? 𝐾𝐿. Very nice to see you, man. Very nice to see you, Joji. By the way, if you want to get your questions, comments, thoughts up on the board 100%, please hit me with a super. That would be tremendous. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with BA. You know what's weird about BA? Yeah, you're 100% right there. He reads comments about him, gets triggered. It's kind of like Kevin Durant in that way. But I think I was on Krug's show telling this story the other day. So Brandon Aiyuk, when he first came aboard with the 49ers, was one of the quietest guys you could. It wasn't that he wasn't good. It's just in an interview situation. It's just if you asked him a question, he would give you an answer, and it wasn't anything that was demonstrative or anything. He'd look you straight in the eye. He was just very matter of fact. I wouldn't say that he was one of the top interviews on the team. He wasn't a terrible interview, but it was just it was kind of nondescript. It was okay. And then I think it flipped. This is a couple of years ago. He and Fred Warner, if you remember, got into kind of a training camp battle. And we had Fred Warner on the show. What they used to do is they would stick us, we'd make fun of this they would stick us in like this kids room almost right outside the 49ers locker room, so the guys didn't have to go very far during camp. So they'd come in, and they'd come in right after camp, right after training camp practice, after the first one in the morning or whatever. It was probably, we were on 10 to 2, so maybe right around noon, we'd start getting guys. And Fred Warner was in there, and we were talking to Fred and all this kind of stuff. So it's me, it's Papa, it's our producer, and then it's Fred, and there's an open chair there in case, two guys wanted to come in, like 𝐃𝐨𝐬𝐿 would come in with Christian McCaffrey, or certain position guys would come in together, whatever. So anyway, Fred's sitting there by himself, and he's about ready to get up, and Brandon Aiyuk came in, and they had just kind of had a battle, kind of a public battle, a spat. I wouldn't call it even a spat. Just they were going kind of back and forth at each other, and it was kind of the first I had seen from Brandon Aiyuk as far as being fiery, right? And so he comes in, sits down, and I wouldn't say that they were at each other because they weren't. They were just having fun. It was almost like a big brother with Fred Warner and little brother and Brandon Aiyuk. But Aiyuk certainly wasn't taking it. I'll just put it like that. And again, it wasn't a spat. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, I was like, look, I lead the defense, and Brandon Aiyuk's like, we're not going to take that. And they were having fun with it. But it was the first time I had seen a little bit of energy, a little bit of spark out of Brandon Aiyuk. Maybe it was his third year in the league. And so then Fred gets up and goes, because we had done probably 80, 90% of the interview with him. He gets up and goes, and kind of Brandon Aiyuk was that same kind of a guy. And there was an absolute change in him in, like I said, I think it was his third year, going into his third year, where you could just tell that he had a lot of confidence. And I was like, wow, he's really changed. And it was an off season. I don't know what happened in that off season. I don't know if he just decided I'll belong here after the first couple of years. Remember, he was in the doghouse a little bit with Kyle Shanahan. That was overblown. The reason why he was in the quote-unquote doghouse was he just didn't realize the intricacies that he needed to play out. So super talented guy. Nobody ever questioned that. But it was like, I'm just giving this as an example. If you're making the cut at 7 yards, he would make it at 8 or 6. And he didn't realize for a little while there, and I think it was a maturity problem, that, if the route called for 7 yards or 6 yards or 8 yards or 9, you've got to be intricate. So there was that part of it. Then, of course, there was the physical part of it and blocking and all that. And the guy we see now is like, well, when he's healthy, it's like, well, he's always been that way. He hasn't always been that way. So one of the reasons I think that the 49ers, and specifically Kyle Shanahan, wanted to keep him was he went from a really raw prospect who kind of didn't get it and what the 49ers were about, especially at that position, to a guy who kind of epitomized it. And not only did he epitomize it, he grew into it. So he understood the intricacies of running the routes. He understood the physical nature in which he had to play the position. And we always go back to that, what was it, the first run of 24 or 23 against the Steelers, in which McCaffrey's going down that left sideline in the first game in Pittsburgh, and he puts that great block on the safety, and it was like, whoa, this guy. So that's one of the reasons I think Kyle in particular wanted to keep him, is because they had this guy that they were a little bit frustrated with. They had traded up in the first round to get. He kind of didn't get it and what it took to be in the NFL. He was a little bit arrogant that way, and they molded him into this great player who really fit the 49ers culture. He was tough. He was a blocker. He was reliable. He would catch the ball on third down. He was tough. He'd go over the middle, like all these different things, and they had made this player into that. And then at some point, I'm doing a long way in what Joji said there about Brandon Aiyuk. It just kind of flipped. And it's been, to be honest with you, it's been shocking to me, the way that he acts on social media and the way that he goes at people and these kind of things. And again, to me, it's a lot like Kevin Durant. Like, you're looking at a guy with an egg emoji with 7 followers. Who cares? Now, maybe for Brandon Aiyuk, because I don't know the guy at this level, maybe for Brandon Aiyuk, a situation where that's what drives him. And like right now, for example, is a perfect example, where he's coming back from this major knee injury and people are talking trash about him like he's never going to be the same, or he's not a top 10 receiver, or he's paid too much or whatever. And so he's got major rabbit ears, and he's using this all as fuel. Now, does he need to use it? Probably not. Does he need to prove anything to anybody else? No. I mean, to me, especially in football, because it's just such a gladiator type of sport, and you're in this locker room together, that the only people who would matter to me, and again, I'm doing this from the outside looking in, but the only people who would matter to me would be my coaches and my teammates. Like, that's the respect I need. As long as they're respecting me, as long as they know that I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, they're the ones who look at the tape. They're the ones who know what play was called. They're the ones who know what my responsibility was on a certain play. And if I'm satisfying a guy like Kyle Shanahan, who specifically is tough on wide receivers because he played the position, then I'm cool with it. Like, if Kyle Shanahan's saying you're doing a nice job, and you'll hear Kyle after games a lot of times say, you know what, it's not that a guy caught 6 balls or, for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, statistically that's good. But Kyle looks at it on a different level. Like, did you perform all your responsibilities? Did you make sure that each play that you had maximized its potential? Like, all these different things. He said that many times. Like, a guy can have what we would perceive to be a poor game. He'll say a guy was great, and vice versa. Because he did that, but, maybe he missed this and this and this. But let me just get back to Aiyuk for a minute. Just back to your question of it. I don't know. To me, it just seems like here's an injured guy who is looking for people to doubt him so that he can use it as fire to come back. That's how I see Brandon Aiyuk. But this was happening during the contract dispute and the squabble and all that kind of stuff. And that's where, fans kind of got on him like, dude, come on, man. You really need 30? Now, that was the market, whatever the case may be. I'm not mad at Brandon Aiyuk from that standpoint. I just want him to get back on the field and live up to it, because to me, offensively, I'm not going to put up the Pro Football Focus things again, but to me, offensively, I look at that whole situation and I think to myself, if Brandon Aiyuk were to come back, let's say that Brandon Aiyuk comes back mid-season and quickly can get up to Brandon Aiyuk form, that changes the offense. This offense, I still think this offense is going to score points, but healthy Brandon Aiyuk at some point, I don't know, that's a 30-point offense with Aiyuk, with Jennings, with Pearsall, with McCaffrey, with Kittle. That's a 30-point in a game offense. Now, whether he can come back to that level, I don't know, because everything works off your number one wide receiver, and Ayuk's paid like it, so he needs to be a number one wide receiver. Jennings is nice. He's not going to scare anybody outside of the box. He's going to go up and get the ball. I don't know what Pearsall is going to be. Demarcus Robinson, just by the very fact that he bounces around from team to team to team. I don't dislike Demarcus Robinson, but when a guy kind of goes team to team to team year after year after year after year, that just tells you he's okay. There's nothing wrong with him. It's just he's not going to draw coverage. He's not going to, we got to put a safety over the top on Demarcus Robinson. So, look, Kittle's fine. McCaffrey's good. But they need someone to step up beyond Jennings. I don't know what Purcell's going to be. So he could be the key to the entire offense, even if he comes back like mid-season. So, really, it doesn't matter what anybody says. Just come back and be you. Nobody's asking for anything more than that, but he's kind of Kevin Durant-ish lately in the way that he acts, and I think it's weird. I have no idea. Oh, red short scandal. Maybe you're right. Maybe that was it. So who knows? All right, let me flip over to some Giants news. This is kind of fun. I don't know why I did this morning, but I was just thinking of Giants angles today, and I just thought to myself, what are people saying in terms of their odds? So let me throw something up here real quick because this was kind of Major League Playoff odds. Here you go. I don't know why I thought this today. Who knows? But here's the Giants right now sitting at 31-28. So that tells you as far as their percentage of making the playoffs. Let's go over to here because that's what I think is fun. Here, let me move this down a little bit. All right, so Giants right there. 71.6 to the postseason, 51.7 to the wild card, which seems pretty high to me because they're saying that the Dodgers are at 95, basically a lock to win the division. But they've only got the Giants at a 51.7% to make the wild card. They've got them on a division at 19.9, which, again, a 20% chance to win the division. I don't see that. To get to the league division series, which means you get out of the wild card, 41%, which is pretty high. 18% to the league championship series. When the National League is at 7.5%, winning the World Series is at 3.4%. So I don't think they're going to win the World Series. I don't think they're going to win the pennant. I don't think they're going to be in the LCS. Could they get to the league division series? Could they win the wild card? I was thinking as I was looking at these odds, that what would be acceptable for this team, because pitching wise, they're so good, right? Pitching wise, they're so good. Starters, best bullpen in baseball. Buster Posey's got to be able to shake some nickels loose of the front office. And I tell this to everyone that will listen to me, which is I'm not going to put all this on Buster because he's got another layer above him. Okay, he's president of baseball operations. And when you're president, the buck should stop with you. And I get it. It does publicly. But the reality of it is he does not control the purse strings. So would Buster Posey like to go out and be aggressive and get a first baseman and a right fielder? Yeah. Are they under the luxury tax enough to do that? Yeah, because we're getting to the point where it's halfway through the season. So conceptually, the Giants could go out and fix their offense. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but they could go out and get a first baseman, a right fielder, and they could still be under the luxury tax. They could find guys whose contracts were expiring. It's just it might cost tonight's starter Kyle Harrison and probably more. So how much could they stomach? Now, do I think they're going to make the playoffs? I did this the other day. The Cardinals are in there. There's some other teams that losing Burns for Arizona. I think Arizona's done. So the Padres, here's what's interesting about this. Padres lose to the Dodgers last night. As far as postseason is concerned, again, let's go back to the Giants, 71.6%, pretty high. Padres dumped down to 63%. Look at the Diamondbacks now. And I didn't look at this number before Corbin Burns. So their postseason is 20% right now at 32 and 34, which, again, can that change? Sure it can. We don't even need to look at the Rockies. But Arizona essentially, according to these playoff odds at Baseball Reference, they're essentially out of it at 20%. So I'd be feeling pretty good if I was a Giants fan of that. Here's another thing that's interesting. They have the Giants win total anywhere from at the high point 98 at the low point 82. So obviously it's going to come somewhere in between. If they could do 88 or 89, I'd feel pretty good about that if I was a Giants fan. So anyway, there you go. That's what they've got an average of. They've got the Giants at about 90 wins right there, as you see average. If they could get 90 wins, that'd be pretty big. And then they've only got the Dodgers at an average of 95, so they'd only finish 5 behind the Dodgers. Dodgers' high point is 103, low point 87. 98 to 82 is what the low point for the Giants is. So there you go. Just some fun. I like looking at odds at this point of the season, and there you go. There's a little bit of odds as far as the Giants are concerned. What do you think they are going to finish, and what do you feel like? Because you look at the pitching, and you're like, damn, they can compete with anybody. That's the one thing that this could be, and I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series, But 10, 12, and 14 was based on great pitching, great bullpen, timely hitting. Could they get this lineup to the point where they at least get it to great pitching, timely hitting? Because they defend well enough, but first base, right field, and they could do this. Some teams are going to fall out of this thing. First base, right field, they could do it, but it's not on Buster Posey to me. It's on the front office loosening up the purse strings. So there's that. As far as tonight's start for Kyle Harrison, this is not an easy place to start, obviously. The three starters, by the way, for the Giants in this series against Colorado: Harrison tonight, Robbie Ray in game 2, and then in game 3, Hayden Birdsong. So, look, a couple of young pitchers going to the mound in Colorado. Obviously, as we all know, not a great, easy place to pitch, but this is going to be challenging for these guys. As far as Harrison is concerned, the reason I say that this is a big start for him is they've really got to decide. So 2 Fridays ago, Kyle Harrison pitched great. Last time out, Kyle Harrison was just okay. I'm sure there are teams in this league who look at Kyle Harrison and think to themselves, because remember, just a couple of years ago, he was the top lefty prospect in the game. And so a lot of people from a Giants perspective are thinking to themselves, do not trade him. Don't you dare trade him. I do not want another Zach Wheeler on my hands, which, by the way, he beat the Cubs yesterday in that big offense. He's awesome. I'm not angry about that whole thing. It was Carlos Beltran. We've had this conversation a million times. I'm not pissed about it. Stuff happens, and you got to take chances. So to me, and I don't know, this is the other thing too. When you have a new front office, you don't know how risk adverse they are. Is Buster Posey a chance taker? Can he convince the front office that they can take chances, or is he going to hoard guys? No, I love Kyle Harrison. No, I love all our young pitching. I'm not going to trade anybody, because to trade people means that you have to take some chances. Because to me, and I've said this a lot as far as these Giants are concerned, this pitching is top notch. This is the type of pitching that if you get in the playoffs and you have a rotation of Logan Webb, who can beat anybody, and right now Robbie Ray, who the way he's pitching can beat anybody, now you have 2 hammers at the top of your rotation. We're going to see what Birdsong is going to be. I'm a big Birdsong guy. You know that if you watch the show with any regularity. But can he be a top-level number 3 starter this year? I don't know. That's a big question. He has the confidence. Last time out, he was cruising through 4 innings, and I was going to say literally the wheels came off, but he doesn't have wheels. But it was like he just lost his release point. It was like, what just happened? And he was nowhere, and he was out. So, this is a guy that's got to be able to give you 6 from the 3 spot. Got to hold on to that bullpen and not burn these guys out. We've had this conversation a million times. But they have the pitching between the starters and their relievers. They have the pitching to compete with anybody in the postseason. Anybody. That's no joke. But in terms of the hitting, they don't need just kind of a guy. Like, they need 2 fairly big swings. Do I consider Rhys Hoskins a big swing? Maybe on the border of that. But if they could get 2 players on the level of that to play first base and right field, now you might be cooking with gas. Because it just like we talked about during the playoffs, an 82-game team and a 16 sprint team, which is the playoffs, the Giants could be one of those sprint teams that you just don't want to see. If they have just enough hitting, because the pitching is there. Logan Webb against anybody in the league, he can win. Robbie Ray against anybody in the league, the way he's pitching right now, he can win. And then you just kind of, you piece it together from there. But the bullpen right now is the best in baseball. So you put those things together, they can win in the postseason. There's no question they can win in the postseason. It's a matter of the Giants getting together and thinking 2 things. Well, 3 things, actually. 1, how good are we? If they believe, then it's like, look, if Buster can go in there and say, look, man, this kind of pitching doesn't come along very often. Let's be aggressive. So that's number 1, convincing the powers that be. Number 2, them saying, okay, how aggressive do we want to be? And that's one thing. We talk about this when new regimes take over. We don't know. I don't know how aggressive Buster Posey is going to be. Does he want to play the long game and say, look, man, I'm not giving up Harrison. I'm not giving up Birdsong. I'm not giving up, whatever young guys we have. And there's a few in the minors. We're not giving those guys up. We're just going to wait. Lots of guys don't sign here in the offseason as far as hitters are concerned. And it sure as hell is not going to help that Willy Adames can't even, I don't know. What is he still under the Mendoza line? I guess I got to start a Mendoza line for him. I had one going for Lamont Wade Jr. I guess I just got to flip that over to Willy Adames. But it's not going to help hitters this offseason. And I haven't even looked at the free agents. But it's not going to help that, especially he's a Scott Boras guy. Like, hey, Scott, you want to bring another hitter here? No, I don't. Because of what happened to Willy Adames this year. So, look, this is the way that they get him. They've got to take the excess pitching, trade for the hitting. And I just want to know how aggressive Buster's going to be. And we're going to find out at this deadline. So, A, what do they think of the team? B, how aggressive will they be? And the biggest part is, how much of the purse strings will they loosen up? And to me, that's kind of an irrelevant question, because what you're going to do is, the biggest question is, who will you give up? Because in my mind, especially at first base, maybe right field is different, but at first base, it's going to be a short-term thing. That's why Hoskins makes sense if the Brewers start to dive a little bit. Mutual option next year. His contract this year, I think, is about $18 million. We're almost halfway through the season. So can they absorb $9 million? Yes, they can. Next year's a mutual option. If Eldridge is ready to play, then they just decline the mutual option on their part, and he's free to go, and they don't have to pay him any more money. Right field's kind of a different story. I'd actually like them to find a true right fielder that can be out there for a long time. I'm sorry, I don't believe in 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭. I would like to see Matos on a regular basis, but I'm starting to wean in terms of, or starting to wilt, I should say, not wean. I'm starting to wilt a little bit on him. I'm ready for a guy you can say, okay, let's just pencil that guy in for 25 bombs. They got to now look, we're at Oracle Park. Okay, 20 bombs, whatever the case may be. They've got to get a solid right fielder. So I would be out for, getting a guy that could be at that position for a long time. Now in the offseason, for example, we'd all, one guy just right at the top of my head. I mean, Kyle Tucker would be amazing. What he's doing for the Cubs in that lineup, when they have Pete Crow Armstrong in that lineup, and him and Suzuki, and I mean that lineup, it just mashes. I mean, that is a mashing lineup. So would Kyle Tucker be awesome in right field at Oracle Park? Yeah. Would he come here? He's a left-handed hitter that's going to be aiming at Triples Alley. He ain't coming here. He is not coming here. But can you find someone maybe a notch below him this year that's got years left on his contract? You're not trading for Tucker. Number one, the Cubs are in it, and they're not going anywhere. So you're not trading for Tucker. But specifically what I'm saying is there a right fielder out there who has years left on his contract at a reasonable rate? That's what I'd be looking at if I were the Giants. So a first baseman like Hoskins, if the Brewers start diving, then you have, you can get rid of that next year, and then it's time for Eldridge. And then a right fielder that you say to yourself, okay, that's a reasonable right fielder that we can have for a number of years. That's what the Giants need to do at the deadline. So anyway, there you go. Giants odds, big Harrison start. We'll go to the NBA in just a second, but let's hit up on some supers. Again, if you want your questions, comments, thoughts on the air, 100% guaranteed, just hit me up with a super. Always appreciated your contributions to the show. How are the New York Giants in the bottom of cap space? I have not looked. That's a great question, because, I mean, it's not like they're paying Russell Wilson. Let me look at NFL cap space. They've probably got a bunch of dead money, but no one has more than the Niners. I don't know how they would be in there. Yeah, here's the bottom. Yeah, that's a great point, because the Bills, I get it. The Giants, these are the bottom teams. Bills, Giants, Falcons, Chiefs, Dolphins, Bears. Bears have spent a lot of money, so I could see that. Niners are number 2 in cap space, 46.5. This is over the cap, 46.5. Isn't that amazing that the 49ers could pay Purdy and pay Warner and pay Kittle, and all of a sudden you look up and they have $46 million in cap space? Parag Marathi is a genius somehow. Very, very well done. But again, they're going to, during the season, there's other stuff. Those are the majority of the contracts. That's so funny. Everybody's sitting there, how can they sign Purdy, and how can they sign Kittle, and how can they redo Warner? And they have $46 million in cap space. Yeah, I don't know how a bad team like the Giants could be so. I mean, they just must have eaten a bunch of contracts. I gotta delve into that a little bit more. I don't know how they could. Yeah, it says here they've got the second least amount of money, $3.8 million. So I don't know. I don't know how bad teams can eat up cap space like that. It's unbelievable. Let's see. But having said that, it's so fluid that all of a sudden you release a couple guys, you restructure a couple guys, and now all of a sudden you got $30 million to spend. Hello, Juan. How's it hanging? You're going to go back and see George in the Cape. You got to do it. You know what? We've got a busy summer ahead. My wife and I were just talking about this morning. I have never been to Cape Cod. I've been to Boston on numerous occasions. Been to Fenway Park a couple of times. By the way, I am a junkie for the old yards. If we started a conversation about best parks, I think Oracle Park's number 1. I've been there a million times, just like you have, and I can't get enough of it. But then I would put in order Wrigley and then Fenway, and then we can start on everything else. You can go, we had this conversation the other day. Camden Yards is great. PNC is good. I think Target Field is underrated. I think that, T-Mobile in Seattle is underrated, those kind of things. So, but to me, other than Oracle, which I'm biased. There's no question about it. And maybe I'm biased because it's got the best media view of any, and I mean any professional sports league. It's behind home plate. And if they had it to do over again, they'd probably do what everybody else does, which jack us up real high because that's prime real estate. But you sit in the booth there and you are right behind home plate. And it's unbelievable. And then, you walk around and there's not a bad view in the place. I love everything around it. I mean, it's just, it's like my home ballpark. So I'm absolutely biased in that way. But to go to Wrigley like a park has been dropped in the middle of the neighborhood, or to go to Fenway where a park has been dropped in the middle of a neighborhood and then there's like bars on every corner, it's just fun. You just go there and it's just incredible. So I'm a sucker for the old parks, no doubt. But we are going to try to get back there. Here's the other thing, Harry Johnson, and thanks for the contribution today. He's riding like 6 days a week. And so I think the Cape is about 70 miles from Boston. And so we're going to try to go back and see a Red Sox game, but he's riding like almost every single day and he has very few days off. Now he's only going to be back there like 2 months, but we want to try to get back there. And what we would do is, he'd meet us down there and he'd have a quick day and then he'd have to zip back up. And it's not that he doesn't want to go to Fenway. I've told you this story before, I think. So he's an A's fan at heart, absolute die-hard A's fan and Raiders fan. That's just, we moved here and I was doing pre and post for both the A's and the Raiders. And so he just became an A's and a Raiders fan. This is what happened. And plus it was in the midst of the Giants winning 3 World Series. And he was just kind of like, everybody was a Giants fan. So he became an A's fan. So anyway, long story short on that whole thing. But for some reason, we were playing a video game. I think I've told you this. And he was, I don't know, he might have been 9 or 10 years old. And it was the Red Sox team that won the World Series. So it had a bunch of good offensive players, but I remember David Ortiz in general. And he was just killing me with David Ortiz. And he just became a Boston fan. And then he became a Celtics fan. And he's kind of a Patriots fan because he likes Brady. So all of a sudden he even though that's not his main teams, it's the Raiders and the A's, he likes Boston teams. And he likes the Red Sox. And so he's never been to Fenway with me. So we really want to go back to Fenway for one day. But he's just like he gets in today. He did a red eye last night. He gets in today. And then tomorrow they have like a function for the team. And then he has like 2 days off. And then he writes like 6 days a week. So I don't know what it's going to work with. But we're going to try, dude. We're going to try, Harry, for sure to get back there. Because like I said, I have not ever been to Cape Cod. So I'm pretty excited about trying to possibly go back there. And then also see a Red Sox game at the same time. So we're going to try to do those kind of things. Anyway, there you go. All right, before I head off to the NBA and have some discussions, good morning to everybody. Good morning. Much appreciated your attendance today. It is episode 161. Please make sure that you are subscribed to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Also, the Bay Area Sports Collective. You see that big B in the corner. That means my show, Tom Tolbert, Jeremy Affel, Amy G, Rod Brooks, Paulie Mack, Creative Tony, bunch of great people on the channel. So make sure that you're subscribed and keep those alerts on because they have everybody has shows all the time. So I do one in the morning. It's starting at 9 o'clock now, but right after me, Paulie Mack is going to go at 11 o'clock because it's a Tuesday. He does Wednesday night shows, but Tuesday, those guys go right after me. Tolbert has shows. All of them have shows all the time. Rod, I know, likes to do night shows. So you got to have your alerts on at Bay Area Sports Collective, please, so that you can know when the shows are on. Thank you for watching today on X at John Lund Radio and on Instagram. Let me check all my Instagram people at John Lund Radio as well. Didn't I click go live? I could have sworn I did. Yeah, I thought I clicked on go live there like 5 different times, but apparently it didn't. But let me say good morning to everybody once again, because I got a bunch of great NBA stuff that I'm going to talk to you about. But good morning, Joe Schmo. I didn't say good morning to you. Good morning to Antonio this morning. Colin in the 831. Yo. Good morning to everybody. The Nutter, like I said, it's never a show until the Nutter shows up. So thank you, Nutter, for showing up today as well, and everybody else. Did I say Mary? Good morning to Mary. I don't know that I said good morning to Mary. Everyone in the chat room today, good morning to everyone. And if you're wondering who I'm talking to, migrate over. If you're watching on one of the other platforms, we have a great community on YouTube, John Lund Unleashed. So make sure that you hit us up there. Do remember, if you missed any 49ers or Giants talk this morning, you can either A, go back, or B, I'll put the chapters up right after the show, and you can click on those. If you're watching later, Cool. You can watch it off of the chapters depending on what you want to hear about, talk about, etc. So make sure you hit that up. Comments are always welcome. Just hit them up right under the channel here, right under the show. And at John Lund Radio on X, I'm often on there. So make sure that you hit us up. All right, let's hit up some discussions about the NBA. Kevin Durant to the Spurs is a big rumor right now. And let me just click something up here, because the reason I bring this up is because I was saying that I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder, I don't think they're going to lose another game in these NBA finals. And I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder have an opportunity to run off a Spurs/Warriors type of a dynasty with their young players, and Sam Presti, their general manager and president of basketball operations, who was involved with the Spurs, if they don't screw it up. But here's what I was looking at, because they were talking about Durant to the Spurs. So they don't want to involve Stephon Castle in that, last year's Rookie of the Year. They are not going to involve Victor Wembanyama in that trade at all, and they're not going to put De'Aaron Fox in that trade. So those three guys aren't going to go. So probably you're looking at, if Durant goes in a sign-and trade. Now, remember, they got to match somehow salaries. So it could be a guy like Harrison Barnes, for example, just to match salaries at an $18 million clip. That could be something that they start with. It's got to be a big number. De'Aaron Fox has $34 million. That would be great. But somehow they've got to work it. Maybe it's a sign-and trade. Chris Paul gets into that there. But like a guy like this, Jeremy Sochan, who to me is not great, or Devin Vassell or somebody like that, those are okay. But you start looking at the numbers. This is what scares me about San Antonio, and the reason I bring them up in regards to maybe, just maybe, they could, if they got Durant, break up an Oklahoma City Thunder dynasty, at least in the short term, is that you start looking at the age of some of these players right here. You know, Stephon Castle, for example, who they don't want to involve in that. And if I was Phoenix, I'd absolutely want to get. He's 20. Even De'Aaron Fox is 27. Victor Wembanyama is 21. And let's not, Chris Paul, we know. But they're 22, 24, 21. They've got so many nice young players that if they can somehow trade a couple that they're not as enamored with, throw in Barnes because of salary cap purposes, and get Kevin Durant. Now, the story I read this morning said that the Spurs did not want to put the number 2 overall pick in there. If I'm the Suns, I'm not doing a deal without number 2. I need the number 2 pick in the draft. You probably can't get that and Stephon Castle, but I'd want the number 2 pick in the draft. I'd want a couple of those young players who maybe aren't as well thought of, a couple of those young players, and a bunch of picks. And then you can kind of start going, okay, now we'll see what they can do. But if you put the other side of that is, so whatever with Phoenix, okay, they'd be a rebuilding team at that point. But what you're seeing with San Antonio then would be, and this is, again, the reason I'm bringing this up is not only could they break up, at least short term, this Oklahoma City, what I think is going to be a dynasty, but it's just another team that's going to stand in the way of the Warriors, as they've got this 2-year window to try to do something. Well, think of San Antonio with Victor Wembanyama, Kevin Durant, Stephon Castle, and Fox. Those 4 guys, and then I don't know what the depth is going to look like. It's going to be pretty hammered if you're going to do that trade with the Suns. They're going to ask for a lot of young players, a lot of picks, probably the number 2 pick, and they should get it. But that team is definitely better than the Warriors, and maybe as good or better than Oklahoma City. So if Durant goes and they can keep Fox, they can keep Castle. Obviously, Wembanyama's not going anywhere, and even if they traded the number 2 pick in the draft, which they don't want to do, if they traded like number 2 pick in the draft, a couple of those young players, and a couple of future picks to get Kevin Durant, I wouldn't love that in the long term if I'm San Antonio. And maybe, here's the other thing with San Antonio. Greg Popovich is not the coach, but he's running operations. What does he feel about that kind of a deal? Or does he want to just say, look, kind of like what Oklahoma City's doing, let's just keep this thing on the track. Victor Wembanyama is going to be really, really good. We got Fox for a reason. We take the number 2 pick, and we just kind of keep this thing moving. Who knows? But Durant could certainly, over, I don't know, a 2 or a 3-year period, accelerate them into the range of they could beat Oklahoma City in a series, and I don't think the Warriors beating that team. So all of a sudden you look at the Western Conference and you're saying, okay, Oklahoma City, if they win the championship, which I think they will, then Oklahoma City's there. San Antonio would probably go in number 2, and then, whatever. Houston, I think, is probably going to try to make a big move this offseason. So anyway, there's a rumor that Durant could be going to the Spurs, so we'll see on that. And then in terms of, maybe you don't care about the Knicks at all, but I was thinking about this, and I think this is fascinating, even though they're in the Eastern Conference and you may not think one thing about the Knicks. here in the Bay Area. But let me just throw this out for just 1 second, okay? So they're talking about Jason Kidd going to the Knicks, right? The Bay Area zone. So there's a little bit of tie in there. But the Knicks haven't had – so Red Holtzman is considered to be their best coach, right? Red Holtzman. Great coach for a long time right there. 67 to 77. He was their premier coach. All right. If you just look at what they're doing, it's just a graveyard for coaches, all right? Hubie Brown, considered a very good coach. Rick Pitino, more of a college coach than a pro. Pat Riley, they had their most success under with Pat Riley. You can see a 680 winning percentage, but did not win a championship. Then you start going into, I mean, these guys are going into the Hall of Fame. Pat Riley, Hall of Fame. Don Nelson, Hall of Fame. Jeff Van Gundy was a very solid coach. Herb Williams was just a replacement. Lenny Wilkins, one of the winningest coaches of all time. He's in the Hall of Fame. Larry Brown, one of the winningest coaches of all time. He's a Hall of Fame type of coach. Please know Isaiah Thomas. Mike D'Antonio, very well respected. So Mike D'Antoni, he failed. Then they went into a series of a bunch of weird stuff. Fisher, Rambis was temporary. Jeff Hornacek was horrible. David Fizdale, take that for data. Temporary coach. And then Thibodeau was really, really solid. So if I'm Jason Kidd, or more so, he gets excited, go to New York, go to New York, go to New York. If I'm his agent, this is just what I show him. Pat Riley couldn't do it. Don Nelson didn't do it. Jeff Van Gundy, Lenny Wilkins, Larry Brown, Mike D'Antoni. And then it gets into a bunch of junk. And then Tom Thibodeau. Some of the best coaches of all time. Some of the winningest coaches of all time. Riley, Nelson, Wilkins, Brown. Those are four of the winningest coaches in the history of the game. And the Knicks chewed them up and spit them out. What would make Jason Kidd any different? Now, look, if you want to coach, and Thibodeau coached 400 games for the Knicks, which is an absolute miracle. Let's go back. When's the last time a guy coached 400 games for the Knicks? Van Gundy, 420. Nice. 25 years ago, 25 to 30 years ago. That's the last time a coach coached 400. But look at this. Look at some of these. Wilkins, a season. Herb Williams, I don't count. Larry Brown, a season. D'Antonio made it 3. Woohoo! I mean, you're not, Jeff Hornacek made it 2. Derek Fisher didn't even make it 2. David Fizdale, season in 20 games. I mean, it's just, you're not going to last long. Now, he may have a dumpster fire in Dallas. There's no doubt about it. But here's the other thing. Dallas has, this is what you have to weigh. Dallas is going to get Cooper Flagg. They're going to get Anthony Davis back. They're going to get Kyrie Irving back. Now, you're in the Western Conference, and I just told you about Oklahoma City, San Antonio, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But would you rather be in Dallas where, admittedly, you're buried by football in Dallas, buried by football. They hardly even know they have a basketball team there. But you're getting the number 1 pick in the draft, Cooper Flagg, who's supposed to be really, really good. You're getting the big and Anthony Davis back. You're getting Kyrie Irving. Now, it'd be nice to have 77. It'd be nice to have Doncic. They don't. But would you rather coach in Dallas where there's not near as much pressure and you probably have a better team, especially with the number 1 overall pick coming in a tougher conference, or would you rather be gone in New York in 2 years? But here's the upside to being gone in 2 years. You're probably going to sign a 4 or 5 year contract, and they're going to pay you not to coach. So if you want to get millions of dollars not to coach, which is what the Knicks do, then that's great. Then maybe that's what you do. So anyway, there's Jason Kidd. One quick thing, and I talk about this all the time with Screaming A. Smith. One other quick note that I didn't put on the board there. I saw this quote. I'd like to give him as little a run as possible, so I'm just going to do the quote. Listen to this stupid quote by Screaming A. Right there, read it. Stephen A. Smith endorses Mark Jackson for the Knicks job. Quote, "This man was responsible for building Golden State." That's what he said. This man was responsible for building Golden State. So it wasn't Joe Lacob's money. It wasn't Jerry West advising. It wasn't that whole front office that got everything together. It was Mark Jackson who built the Warriors. By the way, by the time Mark Jackson got here, Steph was already here. Clay. He didn't pick Klay Thompson. He didn't pick Harrison Barnes. He didn't pick Draymond Green. He had no part in any of those things. And Steph was already here. The 2 things that Mark Jackson did was, this is the best shooting backcourt of all time, and he was right about that. And then he said, when's the last time they saw 51 wins around here? Quite a bit. But anyway, look, I'm not out to rip Mark Jackson. I think that Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy and Mike Breen are the best finals team going, and I'm bummed that they fired those guys. I told you, I think Doris Burke and Richard Jefferson along. I like Mike Breen, but those two, no good. It's a low-quality broadcast. So, yeah, bring Mark Jackson back to the sidelines as far as a broadcaster is concerned. But there's got to be something, and it's a great mystery to me. As stupid as what Screamin' A said, the man was responsible for building Golden State. Okay, Screamin' A, thanks for your input on that. How inaccurate can you possibly be? But okay. And that's the sport he supposedly knows in the NBA. Mark Jackson did not build the Golden State Warriors. Does he deserve some small amount of credit? Yeah, he does. You know, he was the guy before Steve Kerr. He deserves some credit. He instilled some confidence. He did some things. I get that. But one of the great mysteries is, I don't know why he can't get a coaching job. I don't know. I don't know if he goes into the interviews and, you know, has shit on his shoes and puts his feet up on the desk and is like, I want $5 trillion. Like, I have no idea. There's been openings for teams that he played for in places that I thought he was respected. He played for the Clippers. They've had 1 million job openings. He's played for the Knicks. They've had, as I just showed you, 1 million job openings. And yet Mark Jackson, who's from New York, has never gotten a sniff. Now, maybe he will. It sounds to me like if Jason Kidd wants the job, he gets the job. But more importantly to me, to have someone who makes, I don't know, $20 million a year and supposedly knows the NBA more than any of the other things that he does not know, which is all the other sports and politics. But he says this man was responsible for building Golden State. Did anybody call him out? I don't watch that show. Did anybody watch that, hear that, see that? Did anybody go, what did you just say? He built, that guy built Golden State. Like, he has like that much, like a percentage of saying that he helped build it. But he just said like this much. Like, here, let me turn. Like that much. Like, he built Golden State. Like, he drafted Steph Curry. Like, he drafted Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. and honestly, there's got to be a reason why he's not gotten a job. I mean, he didn't do a poor job here. I'm not saying that. Because the Warriors were here, he got them to here, Steve Kerr and the rest got them to there. But even if you said Steve Kerr, like, let's just have a little fun. Steve Kerr built the Golden State Warriors. No, he didn't. Steve Kerr did not build the Golden State Warriors. This is a true team effort that was financed by Joe Lacob. That's what it is. There was a team effort of Bob Myers, of Jerry West, of a bunch of people in the front office. Head coach was a part of it, no doubt about it. But you can't even say, even though Steve Kerr was the engineer, was the head coach of the championship teams, it would be stupid to say Steve Kerr was responsible for building the Golden State Warriors. You can't even say that, let alone Mark Jackson built the Golden State Warriors. And yet he makes $20 million a year. Did anybody call him out on that? Oh my God. Like, are you kidding me? Really? Anyway, that's the way it goes. All right. What else do we have today? Let me just make sure that we've got everything good here today. Anything else that we need to hit today on a random level? Like I said, Sun is in. I got to call him right after the show. He made it to Cape. Let me just make sure we don't have anything else. I'm not jumping. Oh, there he goes. Bad weather, so they whipped it around 45 minutes. We were not even landing back at the same airport. No way. Wait a minute. Oh my God, he's not in Cape Cod. That was actually he said, get this. He says, plane we're in for Cape. They turned around the flight midway back to Boston. Bad weather. So they whipped around 45 minutes in. We're not even landing back at the same airport. You've got to be kidding me. So those pictures I was showing you before. Wow. The pictures I was showing you before, if you just joined us, let me show you something here, was the plane they were getting into. And now, because of bad weather, so he gets in this little puddle jumper plane, and that's in Boston, which I would have never got into. I'd have been like, no. In fact, let me show you. This was so they actually got inside of it. So there's your pilot right in front of you. And then they flew 45 minutes. It's only a 40-minute flight. Hell, he could have taken an Uber up there. In fact, I'm going to get off the air and say, just go take an Uber. I'll pay for it. Seriously, it's like 70 it's like 70 miles from Boston to Cape. And I was thinking I was being the nice guy. I'm like, oh, let's get him a flight up there. And now he's back at the Boston airport. All right. My God, man. That is ridiculous. Yeah, I'm with you, Nutter. I do not like small planes. Not even. Oh, look at that. That's a nice looking view right there. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Screamin' A makes $20 million a year. Did I not make that clear? I don't know what Steve Kerr makes. He doesn't make $20 million. No, he doesn't make $20 million. But I'm saying a guy who makes $20 million thinks that Mark Jackson was responsible for building Golden State. Really? Because the guy who won all the championships as the head coach, he's not even responsible for building Golden State. So, just saying. whatever. I know. You just, like I said, we can go back to the original conversation I had about media. Like, let's say the craziest ass thing I could possibly say. And then a bunch of people will click on it. And then a dumb guy like Lund will say, what a dumb thing I said, but he's giving me publicity at the same time. So there you go. All right. That'll do it for me. I got to check in to see where this kid is. I feel terrible. I left him at 10 o'clock last night at SFO. It's 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. And I don't think he's still there. And I may have to just go pay for an Uber. That just may be what I have to do, is just say, here's an Uber for 70 miles. Just take that rather than take that. Plus, that puddle jumper, I would not be digging that, especially in bad weather. Not good. Not good. Yeah, I've been on those too. The same things when you jump the islands. I don't love those either. I'm not a huge fan. And now they went all the way up there because, like I said, it's only a 40-minute flight up there. It might even be less than that. I think it's like 35 minutes. It's one of those things where up, down. Like from the big island to Maui or something. I mean, it's nothing. So anyway, all right. Everybody have a tremendous day. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you so much for hanging out on a Tuesday edition of the show for episode 161. Hold on one second. I just got a new oh, thank you, my friend. Yeah, we should get that together. Could we please get something together for a George Uber so he doesn't have to get back on that jumper plane? Here is George Uber ride contribution. The Nutter. Thank you, Nutter. I'm going to do that. Yeah, we're going to put together an Uber here because I don't want him getting back on that plane. I don't trust a plane in which you can see with the, let me see this again. I'm going to show this to my wife. She's not going to believe it. When I'm sitting there and there's the pilot sitting in the front, that looks like a car. I'm not getting in that. And then he shows me the plane, which is that, and there's bad weather. Yeah, that's not great. That's not great. And they went all the way up there and then they had to fly back. So yeah, if you'd like to contribute to the to the Uber, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call him right now, and we are going to. Oh, look at you! You are the best people in the world. Thank you, Harry Johnson. Yeah, we're gonna get it together because he's not getting back on that plane. That's insane. Keep him grounded. Exactly right. Yeah, way too small. And I'm not going to say that's what she said, but I get what you mean. Way too small of a plane. Keep him grounded. Great people. Thank you very much. We're gonna have an Uber. We're gonna do an Uber up to from Boston to Cape. He could have already been there. He landed in Boston at 7 a.m. East, 4 a.m. He's been at the Boston airport for 6.5 hours. That's longer than it took him to get from SFO to Boston. So you guys are the best. Thank you so much for contributing to George's Uber, because that's what we're going to do. Thanks to Fuji for a super today, Harry for a couple today. Thank you to Nutter for a super today as well. Those will all be contributions to George's Uber, which I'm about ready to call him and get him one of those. Have a great Tuesday, rest of your Tuesday. Please make sure you're subscribed to John Lund Unleashed. Please hit us with a like before you get out of here as well. Any comments, hit us right there underneath the show or on X at John Lund Radio. Make sure that you subscribe to the Bay Area Sports Collective as well. Polymac and Creative Tony. Polymac's Particles coming up in about a half hour, so make sure that you have your alerts on for that as well. Thanks again for the contributions. We appreciate it. We're going to go get the kid an Uber, and then we will, hang on one second. Then we will be back. Everybody have a great Tuesday. We will talk to you later today and certainly tomorrow for the Thursday edition of the show.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!